What's going on, guys? I'm Arielle Chambers, and I am the voice of Highlight Her, Bleacher Report's women's platform. And I'm here to take you through the Women in Sports panel, sponsored by AT&T. I'm really excited for today. We have some powerhouses that I personally look up to, and I know a lot of you guys do too. First up, we have Shiz Suzuki, who's the Assistant Vice President of Sponsorships and Experiential Marketing at AT&T. She just pushes the envelope of innovation. She and her team bring fans closer to their passion for sports, entertainment, and communities through on-site activations and social digital engagements that elevate moments for fans with leagues like the NBA, the WNBA, my personal favorite, and NBA 2K leagues, US Soccer, and the NCAA. And then she handles events, teams, players like Alex Morgan and LeBron James, and venues and other programs. But a fun fact, Sis loves to travel and has gone to 35 countries. She's hitchhiked in Nicaragua, slept in airports in Chile and Argentina. I have no idea how she did this, but got stuck in a mud bath in Colombia. We'll have to talk about that later because she's, I don't know, but rode on an ATV in Easter Island, swam with sharks in the Maldives. And the best part of traveling, out of all that, she loves the food. Relatable, heavily relatable, but she loves to experience culture and everything like that. Thank you for joining us, Shiz.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Next, we have somebody who's near and dear to me, especially because the WNBA is heavy in my heart. We have Keia Clarke. I mean, just the ideal woman. She's entering her first season as the Chief Executive Officer of the New York Liberty, where she'll lead and manage all business aspects of the Liberty organization, including strategic planning, revenue, P&L, and operations. Additionally, Clarke works with stakeholders on key elements of team business, including the growing fan base, maximizing sales and fan engagement, and improving business performance. She's actually the first CEO of the New York Liberty. And all these changes that are happening with the Libs, I'm just can't wait to see her lead even more. She's not new to it. She's not new at all to it, but just rising to that tippy top, and salute to you. But a fun fact, she's an aspiring DJ. I've nicknamed her DJ KC on the ones and twos, but she's purchased equipment about 1.5 years ago. And in her spare time, she spends. So watch out. As she's the CEO, she might, hold it down with the music in Barclays next year.
Next, you never know. Hey, Ari.
Look, I just want to see you spin. That's what I'm like. I'm like really dubbing you that. You're gonna own that. It's just, I can't wait. Next up, we have Michael Robichaud. He joined MasterCard in 2008 and is currently the SVP of Global Sponsorships. And he's full of knowledge, and I can't wait to hear all of his perspectives. But he's responsible for the development and execution of MasterCard's overall sponsorship strategy. Some of MasterCard's main sports platforms include the Major League Baseball, the PGA Tour, Australian Open Tennis, the Rugby World Cups, and the UEFA Champions League. During his tenure, Michael has led an expansion of the portfolio into entertainment partnerships such as the Grammy Awards, and have included relationships with Beyonce, Queen Bee herself, Justin Timberlake, Camila Cabello, and the Jonas Brothers. MasterCard has also created the first of its kind partnership with Riot Games and League of Legends. And fun fact, which I don't even know how you ended up here, but when he graduated from college, he was an environmental engineer and spent 5 years cleaning out underground gas station leaks and hazardous waste areas and military bases. I mean, I after this panel, I have to know, like, what was that like? That just sounds so risky. I have no idea. And of course, we can't have a women's sports panel without the legend herself, Brandi Chastain. She's an iconic U.S. sporting figure and a Hall of Famer. Her and her U.S. soccer teammates brought soccer to the masses during the 1999 Women's World Cup Finals, which we've all seen the picture of her, but let's walk it through. She scored a goal on a penalty kick after the second overtime of the U.S. versus China match and struck her famous pose that went something like this. And it was great. I have it on a shirt. I mean, who doesn't have a poster of it? But she was photographed on her knees, mouth wide open, eyes closed, fist in the air, wearing a black sports bra and white soccer shorts. Heavy on the detail of that. Love that. Her celebration pose was featured in magazines and newspapers around the world. But after that, she became a household name. But beyond soccer, she's a devoted wife, mom, coach, author, and philanthropist. And I actually learned that she's a great chef because she is a chop champ, chopped on the Food Network. And I told her before, and I can't even boil water. So kudos to you, Brandi. Can't wait to hear more about your story. Welcome, everyone. I mean, what an extensive resume. All of you guys contribute to women in sports in a very different way. So I just want to start with our first topic, women in sports. So I'll let Shiz lead this one, but all are welcome to join in. How do we convince people to care about women's sports, and whose responsibility is it to grow the game?
Yeah, this is a great question to start off on. I actually think it's less about convincing people, and it's really more about showing them. And I mean, we are in the presence of greatness here with Brandi Chastain. And so don't have to say much here in regards to the fact that the US has world-class female athletes, right? Our women's US soccer team have won 4 out of 8 World Cup tournaments that they've participated in, 4 gold medals out of 6 Olympic Games. And then even on the USA women's basketball side, that team has actually only lost 1 time since 1996 in over 110 international competitions. That is an incredible number. So this is really about giving women's sports the proper spotlight to showcase their talent. And when we think about caring, this is about giving the fans the ability to tune in, to watch, to buy the merch, to cheer on, and to grow the visibility of women in sports. But some of the statistics that we have right now are quite staggering. We know that women's sports receives only about 3% of media coverage. And from a sponsorships perspective, it's less than 1% of the investment dollars. So there's a lot there in terms of what we need to do better. I know a lot of people talk about and ask about, well, what is that silver bullet? What do we need to do to fix this? There is no silver bullet. This is a very complex value chain when we think about what goes into sports marketing. And frankly, these are, if you look at the pieces that grow into the value chain, this is really there's a flywheel effect here. So, whether it be broadcasters in terms of increasing the amount of women's sports coverage, whether that be in terms of highlights or the actual games themselves, whether it be the advertisers to purchase more advertising and spending more in media there, whether that be with sponsors investing in to help elevate women in sports, etc. There's a full value chain effect here. Everybody has to do their part. Every bit helps, frankly. And what we need to do, and I believe we've started this momentum of getting this flywheel unstuck and moving in the right direction. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got the right talent. We've just got to get them out. We just have to get more of it out there. And we need to make sure that we've got women athletes and women in general accurately being portrayed. And frankly, so that way that we have better role models, right? That way we can grow the number of role models for the next generation of women and girls. So got a challenge ahead of us.
100%. And then you mentioned the US has been very, very dominant. Brandi, can you speak to that experience as an athlete?
Well, you know what? I think one of our great gifts here in the US is that we have opportunity, right? So in 1972, when Title IX was enacted, it spoke about opportunity to participate in educational environments. And so that, I think, allowed me, because I was born in the late 60s, to really have a platform. And I also happened to grow up in Northern California, which I could be outside all day playing. So I was very much encouraged to participate. So it is frustrating to me, Shiz, and I love all that you said. I think it's really great. And I do believe that everybody is responsible for the outcome. It's not just, is it advertisers? Is it broadcasters? Is it the athletes? It's everyone. So, I feel that the talent is there. And I just watched Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe doing the Snow Angels and the confetti. And, I'm thinking, these are incredible athletes and incredible people. They're not mutually exclusive. These are educated, they have college degrees. They are incredibly athletic and talented. And we just need to spotlight these women much, much more. And I think we all are responsible. And I love that you said that, because it's absolutely true. No one can be quiet. Everybody has to partake. You know, yes, the women's national team has been leading a charge that unintentionally so from the beginning. But I think once we saw that big crowd in 1999, we realized that there are people who care. There are people who really care, and there are people who want to show up. And so we need those platforms. We need the WNBA. We need the NWSL. We need those things. And as you said, Shiz, I think it's because we need to see these positive role models and mentors for our young girls. They come from every community across our country. It's not just specific pockets. So we want them all to believe that this is possible for them. And we want them to be the CEOs of the WNBA teams, right? Not just the players. So I think that is also a part of the message.
So much of the conversation around equal representation and compensation in women's sports goes back to ratings, revenue, and rights. But I do absolutely agree with you. I think representation is just so important, and just getting involved and investing is so important. But how do you think we got here, and why do you think it's been such a challenge for women athletes and leagues to break through with the media companies and fans and brands in particular, especially for players who are willing or who are winning championships and performing at the highest level? You know, you have these marketable players, you have the Sue Birds and the Megan Rapinos of the world, but there's still that barrier. So Keia, I'll let you take this. Like, what do you think is causing that friction, that resistance?
Yeah, you know, and I have to start by saying I completely agree with everything Shiz and Brandi said, and I'm vote number 3 that it's everyone's responsibility. And I really do think that breakthrough will come when we're normalizing sport amongst people. And I look at it through the lens of, I have 2 young children. It's the point where my son is looking at my daughter and saying, you can play just like I can play, and you have the same opportunities that I have. And a very personal story, when I was growing up and playing basketball, you know, it was like, she's good for a girl. And just 10 or 12 years after that, I had a younger cousin who dropped 55 points in a boys club game. And all my younger boy cousins started to say, she's just flat out good. No. And I think it's that trajectory, it's that change. And while we all agree that it's everyone's responsibility, I really do think that it's going to start with that erasure of there being a difference, and really normalizing what people come to sport for. It's people want to align with greatness, with winning, with eliteness, with you are better than anybody in the world who does this. And when we are viewing the women through that same lens, because they're producing, when we're all doing that, we're going to be better for it. But I do really, believe that that's going to be, that's the last piece to really knock it down. It's across all sides. How are we really just viewing this in terms of total equality?
Mm-hmm.
Let me just give you an example I experienced today. I'm out entertaining potential clients, and I'm on the golf course. First, it's a woman bringing 2 males to play golf, right? But that right there is, we've broken a stereotype. So I feel like we've overcome a hurdle. Now, the second part is we're out on the course and I hit a drive, and it's a pretty good one, I'll admit. And then one of the potential clients hits his ball, and he's like, oh, that's going to be so close. I think I got you on that. And we get to the ball, and my ball is farther. And he's like, oh my gosh, like I'm so upset, or I'm so mad. I said, wait. I said, you're saying that like you don't expect me to be able to outdrive you. And he goes, oh yeah, you're a professional athlete. Okay, I'm fine with that. Like, so I still think it's like this underlying, it's not like, sometimes it's not overt. I think it's just the way we've done things, right? It's the way the culture's been, and the culture is changing. And again, I think that's why going back to everybody is responsible, because we are responsible for the culture that we decide we want. And so I feel by me saying, hey, hold on, you should expect me to hit that ball there. Mm-hmm. I have a chance to change that perspective. And so I think that's very important. If you have an opportunity, even in a one-on-one, mm-hmm. you have to take it. And when you do, I think that then starts undoing this sticky situation that you're talking about, Shiz.
100%. And Michael, you're our lone man on the panel, holding it down. How have you seen it grow, and what do you think, like from a male perspective, can help push the game forward?
Well, thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. And I think one of the things I've learned over the last few years that this has become such a big part of my life is that everyone does have a role, and it's not something for a guy to sit on the sidelines, right? We have whatever my job is, and I need to be thoughtful about it. And one of the things I'm always thinking of is we can't talk about this enough. This is really a part of the problem, and it's amazing having Brandi here. I hope I get this right, but I was told that actually the '99 team was wearing men's clothes because there was not enough female clothes that were done back in the time. There's still male shoes that women are wearing. I mean, I've talked to Annika Sorenstam, who's one of our ambassadors. She was wearing men's golf shirts. And I just sit there and go, how in my lifetime has this happened that we're still here? So it cuts across so many different layers and levels of that's just how it was, right? You just said it. And so I think for all of us, we have to look at it from every angle we have, whether you're running a team, part of a sponsor, or from the athlete. And I think talking about it so that no one assumes, well, of course it's like that, right? We have to have the conversation. But Shiz, you started out perfectly. My notes here say availability of the product. Half the planet is women. So theoretically, half the planet should be interested, but even we know it's way more than that. But if we can't watch it, if I can't turn the TV on, if I can't find it, how am I supposed to even know I like it or don't like it? So I think availability and then making the stories. And we all love a good story. And we've already started talking about some of the characters. And, I think of the Williams sisters and other people, and Lindsey Vonn. Just think of any of these athletes that have captivated us, that are the lead story that day. And no one says, okay, let's go to the women's sports news. It's just, this is the story right now. It's an amazing story we all have to watch. And we all do. So I think it's there. We just have to figure out how to finish connecting those dots and make it much more of just a normal consciousness.
Absolutely. And again, going back to that representation, just having the women on the forefront. But consequently, in 2020, we still have occurrences where the first woman is happening. What barriers of entry still exist for women in the sports space? I know we're talking about marketing, but like why are women not entering the space, and how do we overcome that? Shiz, I'll let you lead on this one.
Yeah, and Michael, I really love what you said, because you're absolutely right. Allyship, being men being the other half of the population, we absolutely need that in order for us to be able to change these cultural differences. And Brandi, your story so resonates with me. I have a team of men on my team. And when I first took this role about 3 years ago, I'll never forget one of my first experiences where they're taking me around and introducing me to leaders in the business. I oversee all sponsorships at the company at AT&T. And I'll never forget that most people thought that I reported to one of the folks on my team, as opposed to making an assumption that I could possibly be the boss. And so the guys on my team were very thoughtful, and they started to introduce me as, this is Shiz and she's my boss. And I couldn't help but to go back to my hotel room and think to myself, gosh, there has to be a world where, and I've got a 4-year-old niece who I just adore and I love, and I just hope that one day when she's in the workforce, right, that we can make enough progress where somebody doesn't have to introduce her as being the boss, that people would automatically assume that there is a world where an Asian female could be a boss. But I think we all have a responsibility. I know I feel a very personal responsibility, whether that be in the role that I have or in coming here to talk to everybody today, and sharing this message. But you're right. I think that there's this area of, call it, there are plenty of qualified women. So if we think about it, maybe not necessarily on the court or on the course, but even in the industry itself of sports marketing, on the business side of things, running teams, whether it be in decision-making roles, coaching roles, etc. There's a lot of qualified people in this industry. We simply need to hire them. We need to give them the opportunity. And for us as a company, I know we're very much so focused on diversity of thought, diversity of the people behind that thought. So it's not just about inviting people of color or women to the table. It is truly about hearing them and listening to them, and that participation inherently, frankly, builds better products and services, right? So for us as AT&T, And all of this makes business sense. 80% of household consumer decisions are made by women. So we absolutely should be connecting with him on that, in that very authentic manner. We oftentimes see, especially in sports, something I call pink it and shrink it. This is my theory, is that this happens when you don't necessarily have the right mix of women at the table helping you to make decisions around your products and services, which is take something that you offer a male, maybe it's a jersey or other, and Michael and Brandi talked about this just a little bit earlier about attire and wear, and then just shrink it 3 sizes and turn it into the color pink and offer that to the ladies, right? And if they had enough women on the team in order to be able to help inform the fact that maybe not all women want the color pink, you know, they would start to understand, or offering a whole different set of products and services. You know, there's a greater opportunity there, frankly, for companies, brands, teams, leagues to be able to grow that fan base of Call It Women in a really authentic way. You know, for me at AT&T, I mean, I'm really fortunate that this is a progressive enough company that they gave a woman of color a chance at a sponsorship role who frankly had no sponsorships experience before, and that is me. You know, I didn't come from a sports background. I didn't have a sponsorships background. This is one of the largest portfolios in the business, but what the company wanted was change. They wanted a diverse point of view. They wanted a new way of looking at things. And sure enough, in less than 3 years, we've been able to completely transform the portfolio mix. And we've been able to get into places like esports and gaming and really make a push there, in partnerships with the NBA and the WNBA, and of course, a lot of the great things that we're doing there. So, you know, it's really about putting the right people in the right places. Sometimes it's about taking a chance, right? Somebody took a chance on me for that. And that's a really important thing to remember. I know for me, I will always hold that near and dear to my heart. I think about that when I make my hiring decisions. I've promoted women now. I've hired women of color into my team. And I firmly believe that that has helped us in terms of connecting with our customer bases in a much more authentic way.
And you mentioned that somebody took a chance on you, and I see, Keia, you're in the highest position. The highest position. I want to know a little bit about your journey, how you got there, and how you are emboldened and empowered to be such a force at the.
Sure. Yeah. You know, my journey was really happenstance, to be completely honest. I knew I wanted a career in marketing. I wasn't even certain I wanted to work in sport. But when I discovered, really it was the consumer behavior. When we started off on your first question, why people care about certain things, why people buy certain things, what really invokes you to open up your wallet and say, this is the thing I'm supporting. Once I put those 2 nuggets together, and my career actually started on the golf side, Golf Digest, Golf for Women.
You should cover Brandi over there on the golf course.
Yeah.
That was really the
not today. Not today.
Not today. You did have that one long drive though.
Yes.
You know, that was the light switch though for me. And you know, I clearly had a love for the game of basketball. I had played since I was 8 years old. And really, it was just a complete educational process. And, you know, I had gone to a 4-year school. I had finished my master's degree, but it was really those first years on my positions at the NBA, WNBA, at Golf Digest, at the Basketball Hall of Fame, where I was just learning so much and I couldn't get enough of it. I was falling in love with the fact that, you know, could I really be in a position to market women's sports? And in this case, it wound up, and I'm so fortunate and privileged that it became women's basketball. So, you know, I think absolutely many people took chances on me. And I'll add that intersection as Shiz has, where it's, you know, a woman working in a women's league is not out of the ordinary. We're in no shortage of diversity in terms of gender in our league. But being a Black woman, I've often been a first in many of the instances in my own family and professionally. And I don't shy away from that because I look at it as it means that I'm the last first and there's someone behind me and someone aspiring to. And if they can actually see it, they can actually be it. I had many, many role models along the way. Most of them were women, not so many women of color. So I'm happy to, you know, offer myself as that example of someone, you know, through hard work, through networking, through really just staying committed and passionate about, you know, what really resonated with me, you know, it's continuing to pay off. But, you know, again, I don't want to reiterate everything. Shiz dropped so many nuggets. Like, I'm taking so many notes here on this panel today, but, you know, diversity of thought is important, but diversity in leadership is empowering. It means that you can, you know, turn around and bring somebody else into the fold. And interestingly enough, I was having a conversation with someone about an open position that they had and an open position that I had. And it was a gentleman who said, well, I can't really say this, but I absolutely want to hire a woman for the role. And I just think, you know, again, it goes back to, this is, you know, this is the way we've always done things. Everyone, you know, it's a HR taboo thing to say, I'm deliberately hiring a woman for this role. Like, I understand that that's not the way that we're supposed to do things, but it's like, why not? If you really want to achieve ultimate diversity, if you really are being intentional about the way that you want to build your teams, then, you know, maybe it's that we have to flip this thing on its head and start to think about things a little bit differently.
Going more with the empowerment, I'm going a little off script here, but like Brandi stepping into the role of being that champion, being that mainstream figure as a champion, but being a woman. Maybe before it was cool for women to be so exposed in the sports space. Like, can you talk to me a little bit about 1999 and the whirlwind that was?
Well, I will, but I again, I think what Keia and Shiz are saying is so valuable because, and I too am taking notes. I think it's valuable because what we want to teach and impart on our young women, and I'm going to go even farther than that, I'm going to say young girls, is that there should be no second guessing their own skills, right? Their own talent, their own desires. And what we want to do is deliver opportunity for them to build their life skills. And that's why I feel sports is so important. And me reaching this 1999 platform was because somebody just said, yes, you can. And I then grew up with a mantra from my mom, find your yes. And that yes was whatever I wanted to try, I could. And was it going to always work in my my direction? No, it wasn't. And probably better when it didn't, because then I learned more and I gained a better perspective. And so, you know, I really honestly think, and I'm just writing these things down, you know, this diversity of leadership and participation is, we have to honestly teach young girls. And I started a nonprofit in 2005 when, shortly after the first WUSA league folded. And we have been working with 2nd through 5th grade girls about who they are and who they can be, and giving them positive collegiate female student athletes as role model mentors, so that they can see women that look like themselves and they can say, well, they went to college and they grew up in a neighborhood like myself, and wow, I never thought that was possible. So to get them to be thinking about that they don't have to be perfect to, like Shiz said, you maybe weren't the quintessential perfect candidate for the position that you have, but you were confident enough to believe that you would figure it out. And so I think most women don't step up to those roles because in the past, and this is what I think culturally where we've been, is I'm not going to go for that thing until I believe I can do it 100%. Because if I don't get it right, then I won't have another woman might not have that opportunity. And so I think sports is a great proving ground for your own self and building ground for your own self-confidence. In 1999, I think the segue is that it allowed a population to view something in a way they hadn't seen it before, in a venue they hadn't seen filled with fans before. And the outcome was not really about power and strength and guts. It was about intellect, and it was about determination, and it was about game planning, and it was about follow through, and it was about bending but not breaking, and it was about humility and a respect, you know, to the game and to the opponent. I mean, that was a match for the ages, because those two teams were as evenly matched as you'll ever see. And it came down to what, you know, most of us would say is not the most fortunate way to end a game, but if anybody asks me, is PK's the best way? I'll say, well, sure it is, because we came out on the good side. But, again, it was the faces in the stands. There was men, there was women. And I can't tell you, I'm here in the South. Well, no, I'm on the North Shore of Chicago right now at a golf course. And I can't tell you how many people come up and say, that was a great game. Like, it wasn't in their culture to watch soccer, but it captivated them in a way that they hadn't been captivated before. So not only are we trying to build people, we're trying to, like Michael said, about the stories that go along with them, and the emotions that we get when we watch sports, and that, what we can share with each other when we experience something like that. And so, as a woman who has been a professional athlete, now I am actually doing shiz, kind of what you started out doing at AT&T, which is I'm working for a company by the name of City Cheers. I have no former experience in the tech sector, and a boss came to me, and the CEO and founder, Winston Jabe, came to me and said, I have a job for you. You're the perfect person. And I said, I'm not sure what you're talking about, because I'm a former athlete and a soccer coach and mentor. He says, but you know how to run teams. You know people, you understand what inspires them and moves them, and you're competitive and you're relentless. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like me. And he's like, you'll do a good job. So again, we need those allies, as you said, but we also have to have the belief that we can do it. And so I'm lucky I had a mom that said, find your yes, don't take no for an answer. It's out there. You can do it. You just be yourself. And if you fall down, get right up.
I want to grab a notebook and a pencil right now and say, find your yes. Okay.
Yes.
Look, thank you, mama. Thank you, mama.
Yes, exactly.
But we often discuss networking, and there's a strategy behind collaborating. You guys had instances where people took that leap of faith on you guys, and you believed in yourself. But Michael, let's throw this to you. How do you decide to foster relationships so they can grow to be great partnerships? And what do you look for with collaborations? And does your strategy change at all between men and women?
For sure, the strategy's changed, because I think you're trying to do some different things, right? We're trying to specifically be a partner to grow. And I would say every partnership is slightly overused word, but it's also the right word, right? You're not just doing a transactional sort of sponsor, what have you. You really want to be a partner and understand shared values. That's probably the biggest thing people are talking about these days as well. What values do you have as a company, a business, a person? Who do you want to do things with? Because it's easy in the the first meeting or two, you have a sales meeting, or you have a get to know each other, and you're like, okay, this seems about right. But really, when you think of the day-to-day and the decisions that are going to get made along the way, where are you trying to go? And I'm going to add a little bit of international to this, because with MasterCard and everything we're doing, a lot of the things we're doing with women is outside of the U.S. And if I use my Americanism, say soccer, but I use the word football sometimes. But we sponsor a lot of we sponsor a lot of folks out there, and one of our favorite examples, we sponsor the women at Olympic Lyon, and you could read in the New York Times. There's different points of view, but some would say it's the best sports team in the world. Not best boys, not best girls, the best sports team in the world. The difference between them and everybody else in their sport is just phenomenal. And I tell you that because the owner of the club, who owns both the men's and the women's club, which is common in Europe, it's at his personal level that he looks at the empowerment and development of women. His board is 75, his board of his business, forget about sports, the board of his business, how he made his money, is 75% women. That's just who he is. It's just like, this is how he wants to run his business. I don't know every detail of why each person was chosen. And I'm sure along the way, it's because they're all great and they all fit somehow something he's trying to do, and something and he doesn't really even talk about it. I've kind of had to pull it out, but the point is, there's a value there that he sees this more than just, I want to be a nice guy and I want to win some football matches. It's just who he is at a DNA level, and that permeates everything. And then the other part that's kind of fun, because we were talking about competition, is he's just like, listen, this is what I'm doing. And I'm going to spend a ton of money, and I'm going to hire the best players in the world. And keep up with me if you can. So he's got the captain of Canada, captain of Japan, the best player in Norway. He's just like, this is what we're going to do. And I'm just going to keep winning championships and until you guys try to catch up with me. So it's just an example. I could give you, you know, tons of them, but the reality is you have to have a partnership. There's too many things you do along the way from a creative point of view, a storytelling, different people, different reasons. There's just things you don't know along the way that you're going to encounter, that as long as you have that kind of basis and that say, hey, this is why we're both here. This is what we're both trying to get out of it. This is where we're both trying to go. That along the way, I think you just come to these amazing places that you can never have predicted.
Right.
Anybody?
And that tells me, Michael, that again, I think that's we have to be open to the opportunity, right? So it's not just we can't just look for something specific. I say this to my players, and I think sports analogies are really great because, you know, when I tell my players, who are the people who score goals? And they're like, forwards, and I'm like, no, the people who are ready. It's
Okay.
the people that are ready to score will score. And it doesn't matter your position. It just matters if you're ready. And to be ready, you have to see things that haven't even yet started to ruminate, and it's going to come. So be ready. Don't be sitting here thinking,
Right.
oh God, I wish this could happen. And all of a sudden it smacks you in the face and then it's gone by.
Right.
So you have to see it, you have to feel it, you have to anticipate it, and you have to be ready. I think that is critical for all of us in all the things that we're doing.
It's fantastic. Yep.
I mean, Brandi, you're preaching. So.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
Like
I get very excited. I apologize.
To absorb it. I love this. I love this. But being ready, staying ready when it's, time. So there's been a new energy in particular around the WNBA, and I've seen the organization as a whole be ready for this growth, be ready to embrace that and invest more. But Keia, what in particular do you attribute to the growth of the WNBA in this year, this year in general?
Yeah, this year, the last, few seasons, really, I think it even touches on some of the things we already talked about. I always have to start with the game. I think the quality of play is phenomenal. It's elite, as I've said before, but more importantly, you have a generation of players who grew up watching WNBA players. So they were getting ready. They were ready.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
it's like the basketball just continues to get exponentially better. And I think that's the entertainment side, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're primarily below the rim, but it is a strategic game. It is a pick and roll game. It is a high shooting percentage game. So that is what people are tuning in for. Speaking of tuning in, to Michael's point, more games on television, more channels where games are viewable, be it digital outlets on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, deals with ESPN, ABC, local channels. So it's just like, if you can see it, you can become a fan of it, you can grow your audience. And I think really, I hate to always go so philosophical on these things, but taking a step back, I think a lot of the residual effect and the growth that we're seeing today is the league was a little bit ahead of its time. It was incredibly progressive 24 and a half years ago. Early on, we were early adopters of support for the LGBTQ community, really, involved players who weren't afraid to roll their sleeves up and be in the community. It's like all of the things that we talk about as being the fundamentals of how sports teams do business. It's really it was done out of necessity in the WNBA for, at least 20 years. And I think now the world is kind of, in that same vein. Again, Michael said we can't talk about this enough. The world changed, and it's a good thing to be supporting women. And it's a good thing to say that you're supporting women and you're for women. And then it's a good thing to say it again. So, I bask and love sitting in this space right now. Again, not to harp on all the nuggets that we've talked about on this call, but when you look at New York in particular, a franchise that, we've been in flux, we had been in flux, we were moving, the franchise was sold, and then you land Sabrina Ionescu as the first time ever number one pick, and the first time Liberty had a number one pick. And then prior to COVID, we would have played our first season at the Barclays Center. you have to be ready for that moment. And you best believe, like, all of my focus right now is making sure that that growth stands true and comes out on the other side when we do have that opportunity to play there. But I think, just the league as a whole is just steeped in some of these just fundamental things that I think all of us would agree are good for the world. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, a little bit more about the community work and the courage and bravery of the social justice work, again, that the WNBA led on. It was probably 4.5 seasons ago where they were standing up for Black and brown bodies who were being killed by law enforcement. They were using their platforms and using it in concert together, joining up with, other teams to protest and to educate themselves, quite frankly. So I'm so proud of the outcomes that even revealed themselves in the Wubble this season. And, again, the progress and again, commitment that the women have shown.
I guess
if I can say something, Ari, I think this is really something that cannot go we can't overlook it. And I feel like the women's side of sports has created a foundation built on community. And I feel like this is something that really should be our pin that we put here, or like it's our shining coat of armor. Like, we have always cared. We have always been there. We have always thought about development. And this was not oh yeah, we should be community involved. This is something I think that we have done exceptionally well. And we have been difference makers from the beginning. And so I think that could be like the loudest, boldest statement. We have always been here. Oh. That could be our statement for everybody. We have always been here. And we will continue to be here. No matter what.
Been on. Not new to this.
Yes.
And such kudos to the leaders within the W, right? So Keia, women like yourself, Kathy Engelbert, and so many other visionaries, that the WNBA PA as well. And with our relationship with the W, it's been one that has just been really incredible. I know when you think about values and reasons why you get into partnerships with teams and leagues, the WNBA was, I know when the announcement broke about our official marketing partnership with the NBA, a lot of folks were like, well, of course we assume you'd pick up the WNBA. And it's like, well, why is that? It's like, well, it's part of the, I'm like, this is not just some add-on, people. Like, this is a very intentional investment that we're making, and we co-created it with the league. So, it was about, listen, we want to be that first non-apparel brand to be on all 12 teams' jerseys. And we want to be the inaugural partner of the WNBA Changemakers, because we want to support the women both on and off the court. And I got to tell you, with the WNBA draft, that was such an exciting point in time. I know everybody talked about the NFL draft and about being virtual, but let's be real. Kathy Engelbert brought it, right? Like, she was the first, virtual draft that went off this year in 2020. And I'll never forget, for us and our great partners over at ESPN, when we heard about the fact that they were going to broadcast on ESPN2, we picked up a few phones to say, listen, is there something we can do? Because this is, it's not just about the ratings, right? And certainly all the flywheel effect and everything we've already talked about, but this is about growing the awareness. There is going to be plenty of eyeballs out there that may not even know that this type of world-class, athleticism exists. And we want this to be out there for as many people to view as possible. And so lo and behold, it gets moved to ESPN, and the ratings prove itself. And certainly for us, we put our money where our mouth is, because we, I guess I can't say a number, but we certainly increased our investment on the draft that night with ESPN's change from ESPN2 to ESPN. So proud moments, right? These are decisions that we can impact, a couple phone calls. And so it's such a prideful thing to be able to see, your work and passion come into play.
And it does just take that one extra phone call just to believe in it, to believe in the product. I think that heavily impacts everything. And shout out to the W, who did have record numbers this year, record numbers. And I just love to see it. And again, women's soccer and women's basketball were the guinea pigs coming into COVID. So like we just didn't know how it was. And everybody talks about the NFL draft, but the W did it a couple of days before. So love to see that. As far as Brandi, I know we've touched on the image like maybe 3 times now, but we got to knock this out. How has the image and push of being a woman athlete changed since you were on that field? Like not necessarily the image that you did, but just the image as a whole. Hey, I should.
You just happen to have
the red shirt that has you going like.
It's my business card.
You carry them in your golf bag?
Yeah, I have them with me.
I'm sure I have like 3 more questions about you in that image, but as a whole, like symbolically, how has the image and push of being a woman athlete changed since you were on that field?
Yeah, I think number one was the good thing is I can report in all honesty that the feedback initially from that moment was 99% positive, all in like, wow, was a tremendous example of athleticism and determination and all the other great emotions that come with playing sports. And there was some people who were saying, why did you do that? You're sexualizing sports. Women have come so far and here's what you did. And I love those comments. I love those comments because then I got to have a good, honest conversation and say, I hear what you're saying, but let me explain to you what it is like to be on that field and to be in that arena and to have put your whole life in that direction. And now this is the outcome. And so really for me, it was a chance to change some minds, right? To shift that paradigm of that thinking of, well, if a woman takes off her jersey, it must be about sex, or it must be about, femininity, or instead of about the things that go along with being in sports, like power and strength and, all those other things. So I love that. And I will say to this day, we look at these athletes as athletes, right? It's not like, it's not a female athlete. It's not a male athlete. It's not transgender. That is an athlete. And I feel like that has become like the biggest, maybe prideful moment for me, is that we're getting farther and farther away from the stereotype and closer to what I felt when I was on the field, which is I was a great soccer player. And I worked in that direction for that name, I guess. And so I owned it. And I guess to be able to spontaneously have that moment told me that it was okay. And the people around me who were the closest to me, who embraced me in that moment, also confirmed that it was okay. And I feel like that was all that I needed to know that it was okay. And now other people got the chance to say it is okay, and it will continue to be okay, and it will be more the norm, right, than it has been before. And so we've made strides, and that's what we have to continue to do, is push the envelope of people's acceptance. Just because it's the way it's been doesn't mean it's the way it has to be.
Athletes now have the ability to tell their own story, to market themselves as they want to be marketed, to show their full selves where they have been restricted in the past. But we'll start with Brandi, because, hey, you were viral before viral was a thing, worth mention today. Just talk to me about how people can leverage those moments that are viral or their social media in pitching themselves to the public.
Well, I think this is a tricky situation. And for me, because I'm kind of at that age where, I had a typewriter in college. So, I am like thinking about these things, like sometimes they make me a little bit nervous because a lot of information can be put out, and obviously you always want to put your best self forward. And so, Keia, I want to have a conversation with you, and Shiz with you, and Michael with you, about how can I have a workforce of your female athletes, and we can work in your spaces so that we can showcase the women that we have, and we can get them out there in the public sector to say, this is what strong women look like. Not athletes, not business women, but women.
Count me in. I'm totally
Awesome.
down to
Awesome.
connect
That
offline.
is
I think
great.
it's incredibly progressive in thought. And I don't think you got off topic at all. It's a complex situation because even me as a leader of a team, I grapple with who I am personally on social media and
Yeah.
who I am as the CEO of the New York Liberty and what I represent in terms of the organization. And in the same vein, we have players who are their authentic selves on their own platforms. And then I come to them with content series from partnership deals. And, you know, we're creating stories and narratives, and we do our very best to do this sort of matching and to try to maintain as much integrity and authenticity as possible. But there is a very, very thin line. And sometimes you get, you know, people way on this side who are overshares, and then you get people who are just inactive. So I think that's where oftentimes we sort of stand in the gap as the organization and lean on the brand to be the voice and the intention. And then we pick and pull on players, you know, where we can and as needed, and lean on coaches and front office staff. But I absolutely love your vision for this sisterhood and this sort of conglomerate. I think what we've all been saying in a lot of ways is the ecosystem is working together. Back when I answered the question about the growth of the WNBA, like, to hear Shiz's passion as a partner in what she's been able to accomplish in partnership with the brands and people that she works with is a beautiful thing. Like, that's what you want. It's everything that a team or a franchise could ever ask for. And then you also add in the union, and you add in coaches and the growth on that side, and you add in the fans. At the end of the day, like, that has to be one ecosystem, and we all grow together, and we're all better for it when we're all kind of, you know, communicating.
Just joining together as one ecosystem, strength in numbers to push this game forward, whether it be millennials, Gen Z, you know, older, younger, it doesn't matter. We're coming together. We're putting the women on the forefront, and that's what's important right now. Thank you all for coming. This has been a great panel. I literally, the English major in me just wanted to take notes every single second of the day, but I look to you guys as the ones who are, you know, making the proper investment and driving this game exactly where it needs to be. You're the innovators, you're the blueprint, and I thank you so much for your time. You know, it's been great. This has been the Women in Sports panel sponsored by AT&T. Make sure you look these people up, because they're the ones that are providing the visibility, making it happen for us, and we're forever indebted. Thank you so much.